What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, I'm going to talk about this Mikey Garcia versus Robert Easter Jr. bout that's coming up just about a month from today. I do believe that bout is on Saturday, July 28th for the unification of the IBF and the WBC lightweight championships. Mikey Garcia being a consensus pound for pound guy. People have him at, as high as number 3. I've seen him as high as number 4. I've seen him as high as number 4 pound for pound. And clearly the guy knows how to compete. He's won titles of 126, 130, 135, and 140. And he's going up against a younger, less experienced boxer coming off of, two difficult matches in a row that many people think that he didn't win. I thought that he won the bouts, and I'm still high on Robert Easter, but that's pretty much, I think is a fair statement of the consensus on the matter as it relates to Robert Easter Jr. But what I think is that what we have in front of us is what could wind up being the biggest upset of the year. I like Mikey Garcia, and I had done a series of videos about, a video that I remember most explicitly I did in the lead up to the Adrien Broner Mikey Garcia bout, where I talked about the fact that I thought that the odds makers were wrong making Mikey Garcia a 5-1 favorite, and that I thought if you really did take a look at Mikey Garcia's resume, that the bouts that he had before he got to 130 pounds, before he broke with Bob Arum and Top Rank, that there's really nothing there. That he had a lot of, not very much at all, with the exception of a couple bouts with maybe, Rocky Martinez and Orlando Salido. And I think he also might have faced Juan Ma, if I add that correctly. He knocked out Juan Manuel Lopez. The Puerto Rican was a former top featherweight contender who had been knocked out twice by Orlando Salido and then moved up to, I believe that was a super featherweight. No, it was at featherweight that Mikey Garcia beat him. But I thought that Mikey Garcia was just, his resume before he got to 140 pounds was just very, very slight, very, very questionable. And in a lot of ways, just like he's doing now, that his career has been that the picking of opponents have been very opportunistic. And in this case with Robert Easter Jr., I believe the same thing. If you look at what Mikey Garcia has done at 140, like the last two titles that he won, one was against Zadoklannin, I'm probably tearing his name out, but Dejan Zadoklannin, who he won the WBC lightweight title from. This is a guy that had been fought inside the United States a couple times. He's not a top-notch guy, not remotely a top-notch guy, and somebody that the fight after next got knocked out again. Just never very high on a very, very little guy, who I just didn't think was a top-notch lightweight, and I don't think anybody really thinks that either. So he won Zadoklannin. Then he fought Adrien Broner. He beat Adrien Broner. But the thing that made me feel funny about Adrien Broner was the catch weight for Adrien Broner, because this is really, I don't even think this thing for BoxRec said this was for the vacant WBC Diamond lightweight title. Like, that's not even a real title, but it was at 140 pounds. It's well known that Adrien Broner can't make 140 pounds. He looked like number one, Adrien Broner the book was already out on Adrien Broner. He had already lost to Sean Porter, and he had lost to and he had lost to Marcus Maidana. It was already pretty much established that if you throw punches at Adrien Broner, that Adrien Broner's not going to throw punches back at you. So there was a little bit of a, I can't put that as like the most stellar win in the world. It was a fight he was supposed to win, similar to how Jesse Vargas was supposed to beat Adrien Broner. But the difference, I think, between the Adrien Broner and Jesse Vargas bout was that Adrien Broner, that bout was at 144 pounds and not 140 pounds. And Adrien Broner didn't have to worry about losing $500,000 for coming in overweight and really be overtraining and getting drained down. But even then, against Adrien Broner, he really wasn't able to. He won the boxing match. I mean, he won it, and he won it, by a nice gap. But it wasn't some situation where Mikey Garcia looked like a world beater against Adrien Broner. And Sergey Lipinets is a kickboxer. Is a kickboxer with 13 professional bouts that won his belt off of a guy that had never fought out of I think he was from Oshida. Is that his name? I don't believe that he had ever. Kondo. Akiro Kondo, who was 29-6. Who was 29-6 at the time, and had never fought outside of Japan, had never fought outside of Japan before. And so to me, Mikey Garcia he just seems to be he's clearly highly skilled, but he just seems to be an opportunist. And he's looking for, it's kind of like he's the type of boxer that if he sees, like if he was, he's like looking for the weakest link and to strategically attack the weakest link in a given weight class. That was the case when he faced Zadok Clannon. It's definitely the case at 140 pounds, facing Sergey Lipinets. And now at 135 pounds, I think he's seeing some weakness where there might not be any. I was looking at Robert Easter's, first Robert Easter said some things about it. And let me go through Boxing Scene what Robert Easter had said about his mindset. And essentially what he said was that, he knew that he hadn't performed very well in his last two bouts. The bout against Dennis Shafikov and the bout against Javier Fortuna. Now, both of those went the distance. They were both against southpaw guys. Some people believe that Dennis Shafikov won and believe that Javier Fortuna won. Personally, I think that I had Robert Easter win in both those fights. I do think that the Javier Fortuna fight was very, very close. But I think that there are some extenuating circumstances around that Javier Fortuna fight. And I think you see what was happening. The same thing happened to Adrien Granados. And that Javier Fortuna, having been a former champion himself and being one of the dirtiest fighters in boxing. And when I mean dirty, I mean specifically within the clinching game. Man, Javier Fortuna, I think is, I'm not sure if there's a dirtier fighter in boxing than Javier Fortuna. Having watched him with Adrien Granados and having watched him with Robert Easter Jr., I mean, you could take points away from Javier Fortuna, every other round for his holding and grappling tactics. But aside from just the fact that he's very wily guy, and it's boxing, and when somebody goes at you like that, you got to figure that out. You got to figure it out. You got to figure out how to get past that. And if you can get past, and you got to get past it, right? So it is what it is. But Javier Fortuna, I think, because of that, was an underrated commodity. I don't think Javier Fortuna is going to be. I don't think Javier Fortuna is an easy fight for Mikey Garcia. And most importantly, I don't think Mikey Garcia would take a fight with Javier Fortuna. Because Javier Fortuna is a southpaw, and because he's so wily, his whole grab, hold, punch, awkward style is difficult to time and it's difficult to deal with. And you saw that in two consecutive bouts. You've seen that with Javier Fortuna. And Javier Fortuna was able to do that against a guy like Adrien Granados. And Adrien Granados is a 5'9", 140 pounder, but really that dude could fight competitively and did fight competitively at 147 pounds. He's a big, strong 140 pounder who was having all kind of trouble with Javier Fortuna. So the fact that he was able to do that with Javier Fortuna was able to do that with Adrien Granados can explain why he would have that type of difficulty. Robert Easter Jr. would have that type of difficulty with him. Same thing for Denis Shafikov. Denis Shafikov is not an easy out. He's a very rough, tough boxer with a very good chin. Robert Easter I do agree with people that say Robert Easter fights too much, on the inside, and doesn't necessarily use his height. I've seen that be the case before, and I agree with that. But Denis Shafikov was getting on the inside, and this is another thing that I noticed in the record of Robert Easter. Robert Easter his knockouts dropped off when he started selling out and fighting in front of his hometown in Toledo, Ohio. So I think that there could very well have been, and I know I don't want to call these excuses because he won the fight. It's just an explanation of intangible things that he had to get used to be an undefeated champion, an IBF lightweight champion. And in your 19th, 18th, 19th bout, you're filling up arenas in your hometown. There's a lot of pressures. There's a lot of pressures associated with that. And he said that he didn't believe that he prepared to his best for the bout with Javier Fortuna. And I don't know if that's a case of, taking things for granted, really trying to look and get the bigger bouts that he was looking for. Like he was really looking before the Javier Fortuna bout, he wanted the Mikey Garcia bout. So we'll see and this is why I think that this could be the upset of the year, because he's gone down there to Florida to train with Kevin Cunningham. And if you see the improvement that was made in both Adrien Broner and Gervonta Davis in their first camp that they had with Kevin Cunningham, if you get the same amount of improvement from Robert Easter as Kevin Cunningham got out of Gervonta Davis, then I'm telling you, man, you're really looking at a beast. You're looking at a guy that is going to put on a significantly better performance when he needs it. And I think that Kevin Cunningham is really, Kevin Cunningham, for me, having watched what he did, and I've said this before, I'll say it again whenever I mention Kevin Cunningham. This is not the first, second, third, or fourth guy that Kevin Cunningham is able to get a lot out of. Cory Spinks, who beat Zab Judah, beat Ricardo Mayorga, I think that was maybe in the early 2000s. I'm not sure if that was late 90s or early 2000s, but the son of, I think he's the son of Leon Spinks, or it might be the nephew of both Leon and Michael Spinks, the former brothers who won the Olympic gold medal in the 70s. Both were heavyweight champions. Michael Spinks clearly being the more accomplished of all of the most accomplished of all the Spinks. But I never thought that Cory Spinks was the most talented guy in the world, but he came prepared with a game plan, fully in shape, handling his business. And I think that Kevin Cunningham got more out of Spinks than, he got everything that should have been there with Cory Spinks, got everything out of Cory Spinks that anybody could have expected him to get out of, and took a guy who really, Cory Spinks really couldn't punch, right? He was a slick boxer, he was a smart guy, but he really couldn't box. He really couldn't punch, but got a little guy who really couldn't punch that well to win the welterweight championship of the world by beating Carlos Mayorga, a guy that was giving other cats all kind of problems. Same thing for Devin Alexander. And if you look at Gervonta Davis in particular, Gervonta Davis, when I saw him in that weigh-in make weight at 135 pounds, at that 130-pound limit, and come in I think he came in a half a pound, if not a full pound underweight, I was like, oh man, maybe he got drained. Maybe he was just drained. But then he shows up the next day to the actual bout and he doesn't look like he put on hardly any extra weight. And come in there and take that guy out there, look sharp, look powerful. Man, that just speaks a lot. And if they get that same thing out of Robert Easter, if they makes that same improvement in Robert Easter, and it did wind up being a situation where Robert Easter was training with his dad. I also believe that I think he had Mike Safford, the Ohio guy, another Ohio guy, right? Because in the corner for Robert Easter, if I recall correctly. If you get him, pull him out of training in Ohio and put him down there where he's sparring Adrien Broner, he's sparring Gervonta Davis, he's sparring Devin Alexander. By now, with that great camp, I'm sure they got some more people in there. You might very well see the absolute best out of Mikey Garcia and then see why people didn't want to get in the ring with him. And if he's able to utilize his own talent and the fact that he's so much bigger than Mikey Garcia, even though I have to lean towards Mikey Garcia in the bout, I would not be surprised at all if this was the upset of the year. And don't be surprised if it happens. And with that, I'm out. Peace.